Hello and welcome to this short video in which Dave Pfaff and George Bent will demonstrate some best practices when it comes to using navigation tools to explore our point cloud models of Florentine buildings. We've determined that an open source program called Potree best suits our goals and needs. Patri permits us to save, store, and provide access to our unusually large data files without forcing you to eat up valuable storage on your computer. All of the things we'll show you here can be done in the safety of your own device. So here we go. First of all, it's always best to open Florence as it was using either Chrome or Firefox. Once you've done that, we encourage you to double-click on the Buonsignori map of 1584 that Mark Rosen has discussed so eloquently on our site. In that map, you'll see elevated buildings as they appeared in the late 16th century. Before doing anything else, go to the layer list and make sure that 3D models has been checked. Once it has been, you'll see that the ones highlighted in green represent those structures that we've been able to scan, model, and edit. Simple clicks on that building, like Santa Croce, will either reveal the ArcGIS information about it or offer a link to our model. For the sake of this video, we'll bypass the first option and go directly to the second, clicking on the link to this building called Santa Croce. Because these models are so large, it often takes a few seconds for the point cloud to appear on your screen, so don't be annoyed or put off if it doesn't instantly pop up. Patience will be a virtue. Once the building does appear, the first thing you want to do is check to make sure that you're seeing it properly. If you've got a computer with about 8 RAM or more, you'll want to slide the point budget button all the way to the right. This fills out the model with 10 million points and gives you a pretty complete version of the point cloud. The field of view will determine how much of the model you can see on your screen, so alter it as you see fit. Another option can be found here at Eye Dome Lighting. Clicking the box will turn on this feature, which outlines the contours of architectural elements like columns, arches, or window frames. This is a nice option if you're unfamiliar with a building and its contents, as it will explicitly point out to you some items that you otherwise might miss. But I often prefer to leave the dome lighting off, as I sometimes find that the distinct outlines are a little bit distracting. But whichever one you choose is totally up to you. We don't judge here. You can also fiddle around with the radius and strength features, but you probably shouldn't do that too much. Those are set to give you tight controls of movement within the model, and you'll probably want to keep that where they are as you go. Now click on the button that says High Quality, which will give you the best viewing experience on the computer. If you're on a smartphone that doesn't have quite this kind of power, you can keep the settings at standard quality and maybe move the point budget down to about 5 million to keep your phone running smoothly. We like to keep the minimum node setting quite low so as to keep individual points in the cloud small and compact. But you can slide that to the right if you want to fill out the wall with fatter points, but we've tended to find that this is a fairly unsatisfying option. Now for navigation. Once you've got your settings down, it's time to start exploring the model. Navigating through these spaces isn't necessarily intuitive, so this is a good time to put down your sandwich and pay attention to what you're hearing and seeing. Patri permits us to move both quickly and deliberately through point cloud models. The default setting for Patri is the rotation option, which you can find on the navigation bar here. This lets you rotate from a fixed position with a left click and drag, or to move up and down and side to side with a right click and drag. But before you do this, you need to actually get to the place that interests you, and there are a couple of ways to zoom in and out of the model. The fastest way to get to a specific viewing spot is to aim your mouse on the zone you wish to inspect and then double click on it. The viewer will then zoom there very quickly and position you in a place it thinks you want to be. However, this option will stubbornly refuse to penetrate through what it considers to be a solid surface. So if you're starting outside a building like we've done here and you want to get into it, you'll need to find an opening in the surface, like a window or maybe a crease in the point cloud that Patri thinks is a gateway into the space. Otherwise, though, you'll be stymied by the wall in front of you. So the double click option is a good one to use if you want to cover a lot of ground quickly, or if you see a place you want to go immediately with no impediments in the way. But if you're trying to go through solid walls, you'll need to try this next method. A more gradual way of moving can be done with your mouse. Point it at the item you want to approach, and then use the scroll bar on your mouse to incrementally move forward or backwards. This is a really good option to use after you've double-clicked to move fairly close to an item, because if you double-click again, you'll basically get it too close and you won't be able to inspect it the way you want. So scrolling will let you move more gradually. As is customary, left-clicking and dragging will permit you to rotate the model, while right-clicking and dragging allows you to move up and down and side by side. Be aware, though, that when you move quickly through a model, it will take a few seconds for the points to catch up to your speed. So the model will seem fuzzy for a bit, but then it'll fill in with points to show a more detailed rendering of the surface you're viewing. Again, patience is a real virtue here. Now, there are times when you want to do a tour of a facility, particularly if it's as expansive as, say, the Florentine Duomo or the complex of the Innocenti or this one of Santa Croce. Potree has a number of flying options that lets you do this with occasionally dizzying results. Now, to navigate with the flying option, move down to the menu with icons in the navigation section and click on the bird image. Now point your mouse to where you want to head at the start of your journey. With one hand, go to the 4 arrows on your keyboard and hold down on the directional key you want to go, presumably forward, or the up arrow. Watch out, because it's automatically set to move very quickly and probably faster than you really want to go at first. So there are 2 ways to control the speed of your flight. The first is to go to the speed bar underneath the navigation icons and drag the button to the left. This is really the only option if you don't have an external mouse and are using instead a touchpad as a control, by the way. I like to go quickly into a space and then slow it down once I'm there so I can inspect it while I move. So I'll begin at, say, 30, and then once I get close to where I want to be, I'll slide it back to about 4, or sometimes even lower than that, depending on how carefully I want to view the area. When I'm ready, I hit the arrow button to move me through the space at the pace I like. Now, if I have an external mouse, like we do here, I'll use the alternative to this, which is to use the scroll bar on the mouse to control my speed, pushing it forward to increase it, or backwards towards me to slow my speed down. If I want to turn in a new direction, I simply left-click and drag the mouse where I want to go. Now, the scroll bar approach is really a great option if you have that external mouse and you want to be able to change speeds mid-flight. But again, if you don't have that external mouse and are merely using a touchpad, you'll need to manually go over to that navigation bar and to control the speed by clicking and dragging the speed button. The great advantage of the fly option is that now you can move through these walls that Potree otherwise won't let you penetrate with a double-click option. So this becomes a really useful way to explore a large structure quickly and from different elevations without worrying about impediments. Once you've figured out how to navigate through this model, you're ready now to inspect the space and start doing the serious stuff. So now we're going to go to another model that we've created in Florence called the Hospital of the Innocents, or the Ospedale degli Innocenti, which, it turns out, was really the first children's hospital ever built in Europe. So happily, some of the things that you're probably going to want to do as you inspect a model has already been set up for you. We're gradually adding content to the site, and we've embedded some of it into the buildings that you see here using annotations to help explain what you're seeing. This material can be accessed by clicking on the bubbles that appear alongside the model as it populates itself with points. Sometimes it'll be a translation of an old source, like Giuseppe Rica's 18th century description of this building, the Church of the Innocenti. Sometimes it'll be an explanatory essay that outlines an historical feature, or maybe a photograph of an important image or object. These are nice things to explore if you want to learn more about the building, but we recognize that sometimes these annotations can get in the way if you want an uninterrupted experience of exploring a site on your own. The default mode for all of our models is set to have these annotations visible for immediate access, but you can turn them off. And to do so, move down the menu on the left to the place where it says, you guessed it, Annotations. Click on the box next to each one of them to turn them off so that those bubbles disappear to give you a cleaner viewing experience. Then when you're ready to read or see something we've identified as being worth your time, you can return to the Annotations section in that menu and click on that item to turn it back on again. It's really pretty basic. Now for the clipping tool. The quality of LiDAR technology permits us to reproduce buildings with extraordinary accuracy. The models we create permit you to examine them very closely and, I believe, in some cases, more thoroughly than can be done on site with the actual structure. It's tough to measure by hand the height of a frieze without a ladder, and it's impossible to remove a wall or a roof from a building to see a space from a specific angle. But Patri lets you do that in this program. The clipping tool is the first of two features that can help you do some original research with the buildings we've scanned. This feature will take some time to get used to, but once you do get used to it, you'll find it to be invaluable. Often we use this tool to temporarily remove an obstructing element that prevents us from seeing inside a space. So here we've decided to go to the roof of the loggia in Brunelleschi's Ospedale degli Innocenti that was designed and constructed between 1419 and 1428. And we're going to remove the roof of that loggia so that we can inspect the flooring in between the columns and the structure itself. So first you want to go to the Potree model and find the clipping area. Select the 3D box on the far left, and then click on the button below it that says Highlight. Automatically, a box appears on the model with arcs in blue, green, and red dots that covers the area you're interested in with a pink overlay. You can move this with your mouse, so drag that box to the place you want to clip, in this case, over the top of the loggia. Now click on one of those dots and drag it to where you want the box to expand, or in this case, to contract. Once you've set it, go to a second dot, and then the third one, and click on them and drag them to their appropriate locations. If you don't like what you've done, you can turn the box by clicking on those arcs and then dragging them in the direction you want them to go. By now, you've been able to reset that box by height, length, and width, which means you've told the program what you want to clip away, or conversely, what you want to keep and remove everything else. Oh, and by the way, if you don't like what you've done and you can't change it, just go back to the clipping menu and click on the X. That'll delete everything you've done and you can start over again. We won't do that here. Now, though, we want to click on the button in that menu that says Outside, which means we want to see everything outside the limits of the area that we're going to clip and remove those areas inside the box limit we've made. Obviously, if we want to do the reverse and see only the things we put inside the limit, we'd click on the button that says Inside instead of Outside. Using your navigational tools, most probably your mouse and your scroll bar, now you can inspect the area that you've uncovered at your leisure. Now, as a side note, To preserve these views for posterity's sake, I like to take screenshots of these sections whenever I get a particularly good image, so that I can save them on my hard drive and remember what I did and what I saw. This means I want the window to fill my computer screen, and I want to move my mouse off to the corner so I can get as large and as pure an image as possible. And for those of you out there who are preparing PowerPoint presentations, using these images in those PowerPoints, using screenshots is a really great way to create slides for those presentations. One of the best features of Patri is the measuring tool, which both architects and architectural historians will find really useful. This option permits you to make measurements of structural elements with an unusually high level of precision, right down to the millimeter. It's a great way to test design plans, design idiosyncrasies, and even design theories connected to the building by actually doing the work of measuring objects for the sake of sizes or ratios and proportions, distances, even volumes. In the case of Florence, home of Brunelleschi, but also of medieval builders who preceded him, it's a nice way to test the conventional wisdom of those who claim that certain architectural laws were adhered to during building phases while others were ignored. To start, select the item or area you wish to measure, in this case, a column and the elevation of the loggia of the Innocenti. In the menu to the left, find the section called Measurement, and you'll see a number of options, each one of which permits you to do a specific task. We'll use the direct measuring tool and let you experiment with the other ones at your leisure. Click on the diagonal line icon. Now move your mouse to the place you want to begin your measurement, in this case, the base of the column. Now left-click and drag your mouse up to the place that you want to measure, noting that Patri is automatically telling you what that measurement is as you go. Be sure to avoid releasing the mouse until you've reached the precise place you want to go. Now right-click and check your work. You might find that you're off by a little bit, or a whole lot, depending on how the program has interpreted the placement of your mouse. And that's okay. Errors happen all the time. If it's off, just click on the offending spot and drag it to the place you want it to really go. And you can continue to do this until you have the precise measurement that you want. Just be sure that you're not clicking on new spots in the model, because every time you do, you'll get a new measuring point, and that can really clutter up your work. Just like the clipping tool, you can measure volumes by clicking on the 3D box and then placing it in the space you want, like in one of the bays in the loggia here in the Innocenti. Once you've placed it there, rotate it and either truncate it or expand it using the dots and the arcs, just like you've done with a clipping tool. The volume will automatically appear inside the box as you go. Et voila. Now, a third feature that we really like is called Height Profile. Click on the icon that looks like a psychedelic dancing M. And then point your mouse at an interior space and then click and drag it outward. Now, go back to the menu and scroll down to the very bottom of it, to Properties, where you can select something called Show 2D Profile. Now you'll see a cross-section of those 2 points that you've chosen. And that's pretty cool. You see the stairs, the column, the arch, back wall. Pretty nice. But of course, there are going to be times when you're not satisfied with what you've done. To get rid of all of these measurements, just go back to that menu and click on the X icon in the menu bar, and all of that work will disappear so you can start over again. To save it, though, remember, take your screenshots so that you can use those slides later on if you're giving a public presentation. So there you have it. These are the tools that you can use to see the model the way you want to see it, to travel through it at your pace, to read and learn about its history and its features, to see it from angles you simply can't get on site, and to measure distances and volumes that matter to you. We hope this video has helped, but we also know that, like anything, it's only through practice that you'll be able to use these features adequately. Just remember that there's nothing you can do to alter the model, and no mistakes that you can make that can't be unmade. So explore, experiment, and have fun while you're at it. Thanks for visiting us. See you soon.